It's black atheist, oh yeah, yeah. What up, people? It is episode 4 of The Black Atheist. I am back. I've studied a little bit more. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable behind the camera. And we're going to get into it. And I haven't seen y'all in a while, I've been, trying to come up with ideas for this show to better serve y'all and better help in my own release therapy. So this particular idea for this video came from some correspondence I was having with the lady that I will not name on my YouTube channel, just to spare her from being hassled by anybody. Not to say that y'all beautiful people will hassle her, but just not put her on blast like that. But basically, she's seen some of my videos and she's taken some interest into some videos that I've made. And she understands that I am a new atheist, but she kind of feels that the God of the Bible, still cares for me and still would like to work with me. And she's a really nice lady and she's really encouraging, and I don't have any animosity towards her. I'm happy that she would share what she feels is being told to her. And she told me, this is one of the comments she told me, the God you no longer believe in spoke very clearly to me. He said, "This is a very special young man. I'm going to use him." And when I heard that, I thought to myself, or when I read that, I thought to myself, this is awesome. Like, I no longer believe in God, but whatever has spoken to her to say this is a nice message. I am happy that whatever would see me as a very special person, a special young man, and a young man that could be used. And when she said this reminded me of scriptures that I had read when I was younger that comforted me when I was a Christian. Like Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And then 1 John 5:14, "This is the confidence we have in approaching the Lord, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us." And I read these scriptures recently, and I still kind of got the same feeling from these scriptures. I thought to myself, man, this is awesome. These are some encouraging scriptures, and they kind of give me the tingly feeling. But shortly after, the skeptic in me surfaced, and it was still kind of encouraging, but I realized my first point, God has a plan for you, but it is according to his own will. Okay? The God of the Bible has a plan for you, but his plan is according to his own will. It's free from the things that you may want. It's free from the things that you may want to do with your life. Let's read that Jeremiah 29:11 again. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." I know the plans that I have for you. 1 John 5:14, "This is the confidence we have in approaching the Lord, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us." So if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. What about all the stuff that's not according to his will? Does he not hear us? Does he not beg our pardon? Does he not care about these things? I don't know. How does our free will even exist when he has a concrete plan for us? It's kind of like I said in one of my previous videos. We have free thought. We have free will. But it's free will with God's gun next to it. Oh, you better do this, or bang, bang, bang. Like I said in episode 3, I believe. So my first point is, God has a plan. God has a plan for you, but it's according to his own will. Does his will take into account anything that you want? Would it be okay as a parent to invoke our wills and our destinies for our children upon them, would it be okay for us to make them do certain things so we can live vicariously through things that they do, rather than taking into account what they would want for their lives? My second point, if God has a plan for you, is it safe to say that God has a plan for everybody? In a life of give and take, positive and negatives, order and chaos, is it a fair assumption to say that God has predestined people to be the recipients of lesser things in life? For everybody that is disease-free, is it safe to say God has predestined the diseased? For everybody that has a good meal and that is healthy, is it safe to say that God has predestined famine to be upon people? Is it safe to say that people that have not experienced sexual abuse, on the flip side of that coin, to be sexually abused? Is that safe to say that? Is it safe to say that every time somebody doesn't get a promotion, the person that got the promotion has the hand of God on their life, and the person that didn't get the promotion still has the hand of God upon their life? Can I go as far to say that for everybody that enters into heaven, on the flip side of the coin, people are predestined to go to hell? For all intentional purposes, I can be fulfilling my purpose right now. Maybe my questioning will lead you to a stronger faith. Maybe my questioning will lead you to a stronger faith. And lo, I go to hell, you go to heaven. You're welcome. Let's review some scriptures to further substantiate my case. In the book of Exodus, the story of Moses and him leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. And it talks about how God appointed Moses. He predestined him to do so. And how Moses went to Pharaoh and said, "Hey, Pharaoh, God's hand is upon me. God would like the Israelites, who are his people, to be let go from slavery to you." And the Bible talks about in Exodus 7:3 how God purposely made Pharaoh's heart stubborn so that Pharaoh would not release the Israelites. Once again, God purposely made Pharaoh's heart stubborn. Who's to say that Pharaoh's heart wouldn't get stubborn on its own? Who's to say that Pharaoh would have just let the people go? We don't see that. We see that God purposely made Pharaoh's heart stubborn. And there's a lot of stuff that befalls us. We can talk about the plagues that were placed on Israel and all the lives that were claimed by that, but you can read that on your own. Don't just take my word for it. But I want you to take into account that God made Pharaoh's heart stubborn. And pretty much any deaths that came from this came from the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. If you look at Exodus 14, verse 28, you see how that after all the plagues and after all the stuff that befell Egypt and Pharaoh, finally Pharaoh was like, "Okay, you can take your people." Moses took the people, and then Pharaoh chased after them. Now, there's a point in time where God gave Moses the ability to spread the Red Sea, and he walked with the Israelites on dry land, and he got to the other side of the Red Sea. Well, behind him, Pharaoh's people were in the water, and Moses closed his hands and came down on Pharaoh's people. And the scripture even goes to say that no one survived. When the water came down on them, no one survived. So this is telling me that we can go all the way back to God purposely, predestinedly, for lack of better words, making Pharaoh's heart stubborn and everybody that died from this. We'll look at that as the beginning point. God making his heart stubborn. Not Pharaoh deciding to stubborn his heart, but God making his heart stubborn. And this is the scripture. This is what the scripture says. This is not something that I'm taking liberty with. We can also see a character in the New Testament, Judas. Matthew 26:14-6 talks about Judas betraying Jesus. Well, King David talked about it in Psalms in the Old Testament, how Judas would betray Jesus. This was predestined. God knew Judas before he was born and knew that Judas was predestined to betray Jesus. Now, I can't purposely say that, excuse me, let me drink something. Please hit subscribe while I'm drinking. Or comment, rate, hate, whatever you want to do. You know, it's all good. Okay. So, it's not necessarily a fair assumption to say that God put this in Judas's heart, but it's a fair assumption to say that he was predestined to do this beforehand. This was going to happen. Judas was going to betray Jesus. And isn't this, you know, like kind of like what I've been talking about in the body of this episode? How some people can be predestined for goodness, and it's not a far stretch to say that people are predestined for bad things. Judas was predestined to betray Jesus. Pharaoh was predestined with God's will and God's intent to be made stubborn so that God could get the glory. So all these people died. All these people that died in war couldn't go back to their wives, couldn't go back to their children. All these husbands couldn't go back to their wives, couldn't go back to their children. All these men couldn't go back to their wives, couldn't go back to their moms and dads because they were predestined to die. God predestined Israel to be his people. And I don't think it's a long stretch for me to say that simply being born where you were born, you're predestined to do that. So people were predestined to be Israelites and be God's people and have God's protection. People were predestined to be Malachites and Amalekites and Egyptians and be outside of God's will and outside of God's protection. And I think that that is not cool. To be a God and have all the power in the world and all the foresight, to be omnipresent, always somewhere, to be omniscient, to know everything. Why would you predestine people to be the hills of society, to be the dregs of society, to die in a war that didn't have to take place, a war that you could have quickly avoided, but you chose to harden Pharaoh's heart to make yourself look good, to show everybody that you are the one true God? It seems almost that you would put yourself and you being acknowledged and you being praised over your creation's life, and I think that's horrible. You, in a sense, are our parents if you created us, and we as human beings have the ability to reproduce and make children. And it would be horrible for any parent to put their will and their praise over the well-being of their child. Well, that's all I've got for now. It is the Black Atheist, Oliver, and I thank you for tuning in. Please rate, debate, hate, comment, and subscribe. As I continue to get ideas, I will continue to do videos. Y'all take care.